Hi, and welcome to episode 2 of the Neurodivergent podcast, where we dive into the world of neurodiversity, mental health, and strategies for thriving in life and work. I'm Jannice Jones, the Neurodivergent Positive Psychologist, and today I'm going to be talking about something that so many neurodivergent individuals struggle with, our executive function challenges, and how basic self-care can actually help us to improve our focus, motivation, and mental clarity. If you've ever wondered why things like starting a task, managing time, or even just remembering to eat or go to the loo, sometimes we find it much harder for ourselves than others who are neurotypical. If that's you, this episode is for you. In the episode, we're going to explore the neuroscience behind dopamine and noradrenaline and the prefrontal cortex, and how all these affect ADHD and autistic brains, how they affect it differently than neurotypical brains. So, what are executive function challenges? What are executive functions? Executive functions are a set of mental skills that help us to plan, focus, remember instructions, and juggle multiple things at once. These skills are controlled mostly by the prefrontal cortex. Here, the part of our brain that's responsible for what we call higher order thinking. For many neurodivergent individuals, particularly those with ADHD and autism, executive function can be impaired or inconsistent. This can show up as things like struggling with task initiation, knowing your need to start something but feeling stuck, difficulty prioritizing, so everything feels equally urgent or equally impossible, things like time blindness, so we can lose track of time, we can underestimate how long things are going to take, things like forgetfulness, which is our working memory, disorganization, struggling to keep track of tasks, objects, or appointments, so losing keys, etc., all the time. And things like emotional dysregulation, where we can get overwhelmed really easily, or we can shut down, or even have what is known as meltdown. If this sounds familiar, you're not alone. These challenges are not personal failures. They are not because you're lazy or because you don't care or because you don't want to be organised. They are based on the way our brains as neurodivergents are wired differently to neurotypicals, and understanding the neuroscience behind them can actually help us to create strategies that work with our brains rather than against them. So what is the neuroscience behind executive functions? The main ones are dopamine and noradrenaline. So let's have a look at why executive function is difficult for us with neurodivergent brains. The neurotransmitters dopamine and noradrenaline. Dopamine is the motivation or reward transmitter. So it helps us feel good when we complete tasks and stay engaged in all the things that we're doing. In ADHD brains, dopamine levels are often much lower than in neurotypicals, which is why mundane or repetitive, boring tasks can feel so hard to start or continue. Noradrenaline, also called norepinephrine, plays a huge role in focus, attention, and most importantly, stress regulation. It's produced in the locus coeruleus and helps keep us alert, motivated, and able to switch easily between tasks. So if we can't switch easily between tasks, that makes it really clear why we have difficulty doing this, and then we might have 100 other things come in and say, in the workplace especially, where it's saying, we need you to do this now, we need you to look at this now, we need you to focus on this now, when actually our brains just want to do this thing that we're actually interested in. So those low dopamine and noradrenaline levels make it hard for us to start, sustain, or focus on tasks, which can lead to procrastination, impulsivity, or task paralysis. In autism, noradrenaline sensitivity can vary greatly. In some autists, people experience complete sensory overload and very high stress levels, while other autists experience low arousal and struggle with task initiation instead. When noradrenaline levels are too low, we might feel really foggy, unmotivated, or emotionally drained. I feel it in my brain sometimes where literally it doesn't matter how engaged or how much I want to do a task, I've got this like complete fogginess that while that's there, I literally can't focus on anything, however interested or how much I might want to do it. And when levels are too high, it can cause high levels of stress, anxiety, and sensory overload, which is why we can go into burnout and meltdown. So the key is in balancing our levels. So what can we do to help ourselves? There are some basic self-care things that we can do once we understand the neuroscience. We can look at what we can do to help ourselves improve on whatever level we can how our brains work. When we think of self-care, a lot of people go, oh, bubble baths or spa days. But in reality, self-care is really, especially as a neurodivergent, is about giving your brain what it needs to function well. And here are some simple science-backed strategies that you can do easily to improve executive function. Number 1, move your body in any way. So go for a walk, do some yoga, do some tai chi, do some press-ups, whatever it is, do something physically. Why? Physical activity is a natural dopamine and noradrenaline improver. It boosts them. So that thing of, just if I want to improve focus, move my body, just do a 5-minute stretch, a short walk, 5 minutes of dancing. Put on your favourite track and do 5 minutes of dancing, and then you can go back to doing the thing that you were struggling with doing. Anything that can help you to reset your noradrenaline and dopamine levels. So what else can help? Cold exposure, cold showers, ice packs, things like that, or having just a few minutes of cold shower after you've had a warm shower. Why? Cold exposure activates the locus coeruleus, increasing noradrenaline and enhancing alertness. So try this. Splash cold water on your face or use an ice pack on the back of your neck here. What else can help? There's something that I teach all my clients to do, which is stop, breathe, be. So especially when you're stress levels are high and you're starting to go into overwhelm, or recognize that your heart rate is increasing and your breathing is shallower, if you do stop, breathe, be, it can take 30 seconds or less, right? Which is, you stop just for a moment. You can close your eyes if you want to, but if you're in a workplace where that doesn't feel appropriate, then just literally stop and take 3 or 4 second in, 8 second out breaths in and out through your nose if you can. Some people find it really difficult to breathe through their nose. Three or four of those 4 seconds in, 8 seconds out, which when we breathe in, the heart rate speeds up. When we breathe out, the heart rate slows down, and we're literally just taking our system out of that stress, fight, flight, freeze response, and just bringing it gently back, just through 3 or 4 breaths, into a state where we can think again. And the be part is literally, once you've done the breath, just be with yourself for a few moments before you move on to the next task or whatever it is. What else can we do? Eating protein-rich food. So, protein contains tyrosine, a precursor to dopamine and noradrenaline. So if you start your day, or at some point in the morning, with things like eggs, nuts, or yogurt, plain yogurt, not all that sugary yogurt, instead of toast, cereal, anything like that, which is just carbs and very high in sugar, starting your day with a higher protein can be very beneficial. Deep breathing and mindfulness. So I've talked about stop, breathe, be, but why does it actually help? So it regulates noradrenaline, lowers stress. So you can do the 4-8 breath. You can use box breathing, which is 4, 4, 4, 4. So in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. You can use box breathing. You can use 4-8 breath. You can use 4-7-8 breath, which is 4 in, hold for 7, out for 8. Any of those helps your body to down-regulate and to come out of that heightened response. And lastly, you could use external support. So some timers, absolutely essential for me. I wouldn't remember to do anything without reminders on my phone for this, timers on my phone for that, planners, apps, all sorts of things. There are lots and lots and lots of apps and timers and planners, anything that you think might help with your organisation, timekeeping, memory. We need external structure. So if you can see on something like Kanban Flow or any of the other apps like that, you can see how your day is set out, how your week is set out. You can break tasks down into smaller bit. You can use Pomodoro timers, which you're setting it for 25 minutes. And the ones that really work well have like a clear face, and they have a 25-minute red bit, and then it comes down, and then the alarm goes off when you've used your 25 minutes. So any of those things, taking regular breaks, you need your brain. I've heard it described as a Ferrari engine and bicycle brakes, okay? So we need to support our brain the ability to put the brakes on, which is the ability to stop, the ability to do the stop, breathe, be, to do some mindfulness, to do some breath work, to walk away from the screen for 5 minutes, to go and outside and take some fresh air. All of these things to help our brains to down-regulate, to be able to focus easier. So think about all of these things that you can draw upon to help your executive function challenges in ADHD and autism. They are neurological, they're not personal failures. Dopamine and noradrenaline play a huge role in focus, motivation and stress regulation. But basic self-care strategies, movement, nutrition, external structure, breath work, these can help you to regulate your body systems so that your executive functions can work better. So if you are looking for coaching in this area, if you are looking for training for yourself or other staff members or your organisation, if you are looking for resources, go to my website, jannicejones.com, which is Jannice with a double N, JANNICE.com. Remember that your brain is wired differently than neurotypical brains. And that's okay. And when we know how to support ourselves and we are supported by others in a workplace situation, and we know how to take care of our amazing brains, we can really thrive. And being a positive psychologist, that's what positive psychology is all about. It's the study of thriving, how we thrive as human beings. We have other challenges as neurodivergents that can make it seem much harder for us to thrive in a neurotypical world. But when we start to practice these self-care behaviours and understand what's actually going on inside of our brain, instead of having that negative self-talk, which is, you're lazy, you can't do this, what's wrong with you? Instead of having that negative self-talk, we can start to move towards self-compassion and understanding and give ourselves what we actually need to start being able to, yes, deal with and work with our executive function challenges, but also to support and treat ourselves really well. We are not broken. Our brains are just wired differently, and that's okay. So I am Jannice Jones, the Neurodivergent Positive Psychologist. I really, really hope that you will get some value out of this podcast session. Please follow me on Instagram, or LinkedIn is where I tend to hang out the most. And follow, like, or subscribe to this podcast, the Neurodivergent Podcast. Until next time, be well.